Welcome to part 2 on our two-parter about the Second Amendment. So we're going to pick up right around the point where we left off last time. I did do a few more edits on the second part, so it's a little bit shorter than an hour, but again, still didn't want you to have to trudge through all that at one time. So let's go ahead and join in on the conversation. So you're actually a lot more, I was, based on previous conversations, I was expecting you to be a lot more hump, Second Amendment. No.
Here's if it's I
Breathe, Johnson, breathe.
Woo!
Humph, I say.
I
Come on.
when I got the gun, and seriously, when I got the gun, I was sitting in my room and I had it loaded, and I was thinking to myself, no, no. I was thinking to myself, with this gun sitting as it is right now, and I had gotten a concealed carry holster because that's my goal. I'm gonna concealed carry, and so I had it in there. I was kind of getting used to it, finding a position that I liked.
Okay.
And thinking to myself, there's a lot of responsibility with this thing.
Yeah.
And going into it, I'm like, oh, this and that, but in the end, I'm like, to myself, there's a lot of loopholes that I am starting to agree upon that should be addressed, and there are some things I think that are unnecessary.
Okay. What are some of these loopholes that you knew I was going to ask that?
I knew you were going to ask that.
If you say the word,
so
I'm going to come in on that.
So, for example, I was speaking with Jonah, and he was saying his dad is no longer a concealed carry. He doesn't carry anymore.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want to have to take on that level of responsibility if he were to pull it out and he were to
right.
It's such a fine line.
Okay.
With the law, the court system, and the jury, everybody's real picky.
So I asked loophole, and you're telling me about someone not wanting to feel responsible. So please tell me about the loophole.
And by loophole, I mean things that I think should be changed to better safeguard citizens.
Such as?
So for me,
you would make a great politician.
Don't say that.
You did talk about going into politics.
I know I did.
We could see him up there on the Democratic debate stage.
Oh, hang on. Just crossing the line now.
Sure, if he calls himself a moderate.
So states where residents can be issued a concealed handgun permit without firing a gun.
Okay.
To me, that's wrong.
Okay, so
if you obtain a permit to conceal your weapon, you are having your weapon on you, and the chance of you needing to use that weapon goes up significantly.
Okay.
Just because it's on you in an instance where you might need to use it.
Okay.
If it's at home in a box, chances of you using it or shooting it is very unlikely. You take it to a range, you're usually going to shoot it. But in person, if you go and you get a concealed carry and there's somebody messing with you or somebody does something, instead of you running and fleeing, now you have this second thought in your back of the head, well, I can just reach back here, lift up my clothing, grab my pistol. If you don't know how that gun works, if you don't know how that gun fires, and if you're not used to that, you are not only a liability to yourself at that point, you're also a liability to anybody around you. You could do an accidental discharge. You could easily miss your target and hit someone else. So to me, I think in order to get a concealed carry, you should fire the gun. Now, a level of your ability to hit something, like I can definitely see something being passed to where if you want to obtain a concealed carry license, you have to have a certain grouping of rounds in what is known as the A zone of a target, which is the center portion of a target,
okay,
which is the same size as a folded piece of paper. I can definitely see that being something to where these people who are choosing to concealed carry have to prove that they can use the weapon and that in public they are going to be a very reliable source for defense instead of somebody just spray firing into a crowd and hitting 3 or 4 people on accident.
I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Before we go into your other loopholes that you're going to detail for us that you feel are out there, because you're talking about all this stuff. Do you believe now that you're a gun owner that gun owners should have a license to carry a gun? I'm not even talking concealed carry. I'm talking not to carry a gun, to buy a gun. Should they have to go through licensing procedure to be able to purchase a gun?
Who gets the payment on it?
The government.
No. Because it's just a way for the government to suck up more money. Now, if I
But
had
then
to,
how are you going to enforce these rules that you're talking about, that there are these loopholes, if you're not going to have some sort of licensing procedure?
I will give you my commentary once you're done grilling Josh. I have, let's just say, my personal opinions on this will open up a completely different can of worms as far as discussion. And as soon as we're done with Josh, I will freely share that.
Okay.
okay, so you love playing devil's advocate. I can just see the fire in your eyes.
Oh, it's a great place to be.
You know how easy it is with you, though? You make it so easy.
I don't think it's easy being devil's advocate. I think it's easy for you to be devil's advocate.
Because you have... Never mind. I'm not going to comment on that. But anyways, go on.
So you're saying, well, here's the other thing you're
Bec-
on.
because
So gun
you're-
license
because
for
you're
me to have guns in my house.
No. So you're talking about, in order for someone to get a concealed carry permit, you're saying, well, they need to shoot and they need to hit in this specific pattern.
I'm saying I can see it going that way,
but
I
how
think
are you going to enforce something like that unless you have to have something like, you have to be licensed to even get a gun? And then as part of that, because this has been talked about many times, about making it a license to have a gun, because you have to have a license to drive, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
some states, I think you do have to have a license to own any type of firearm or to purchase,
yeah.
or they do a resale on a firearm as well, too.
I think Mass is one of them, that you have to do that. But
California, probably.
I don't know about California, but but as part of that, like, okay, Bloomberg, he just entered the presidential race, right?
I really haven't been paying attention, but yes, I heard his name pop up.
Okay. Anyways,
Billionaire, isn't he?
yeah, he spent a ton, millions of dollars on Thanksgiving for his announcement commercials, essentially, that he was running for president. And anyways, part of his gun control policy that he has, that he's running on, is he wants to do, you have to get licensed to be able to buy a gun and own a gun. And then that involves like psychiatric interviews, not full on like crazy, like all this, but just general mental health interviews and that. And then obviously he also has red flag laws and etc.
Can you refresh me on the red flag laws?
Red flag laws. You have a gun.
Mhm.
I go to the court. I think Josh is dangerous. He's in a bad mental state.
Gun should be taken.
Yep. Gun should be taken. They come and take away your gun. And
And
then
then I would sit there and have to fight and get it back.
Yeah.
I think if that's the case, I think that only immediate family members should be allowed for that.
I
don't think anybody on the street should be able to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if that's the
That's
case-
going to be per state on how that's restricted with red flag laws. But anyways,
Because as it is, I can easily go, hey, this red Acadia, probably 2012, 2014,
Yep.
guy just showed a pistol at me because I apparently cut him off when he cut me off. Anyways, officer, I feel like he's dangerous. Okay, where are you? And if Aaron Johnson, by chance, happens to have a pistol in his vehicle, and he is a concealed carry, so he does not have to have it locked up, he could go to jail because I did a cry wolf call.
okay.
So that technically already is in play.
I have one other question. What do you feel about raising the minimum age to buy a gun? Let's say to 21.
Oh, I know where Brock is. I know where Brock is.
Once again, let's explore that after you're done grilling Josh.
Yep, I know.
You just asked me the same questions. You just asked him the same questions you asked me. I'm curious to see where he's going to come from.
He's gonna do his thing, but he wants to let you give a chance
me?
to talk first.
Trust me, this will get very interesting very quickly.
If you're looking at,
I mean, at this point, you have to be 21 to buy alcohol. Some states are raising it to 21 to buy tobacco. 21 to buy any gun is what Bloomberg's proposing.
Don't you have to be 21 to get a handgun?
Yes,
Yeah.
But
but you
Not
can
a
be
rifle.
18 to get a long arm.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
and they're saying any gun at all up to 21.
here's oh man. I mean, when you bring in when you bring in the fact that you can be 18 years old and you can be defending and dying for your country, but yet you can't defend your own home at that age, that's where I have an issue. If
Okay.
you're allowing these boys to go overseas and die, but somebody can't defend themselves here, come on.
Yeah, we're not going to get into the whole exceptions thing again because,
no. So I see.
by the way, you could have been in Britain and 16 and married. Just FYI.
Well, back then they got married at
No.
like 10 and 12.
Now, yeah, but nowadays I'm saying,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, with parental consent.
With parental consent.
Yeah, so you can join the army and get married at 16 in Britain.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Brewer's life would be so much different.
It would be.
I
Anyways, go on.
I don't agree. Well, I can see where the Supreme Court can have issues because you have modern day, you have older stuff, you have I think the issue, and this is just me speaking, I use terminology the rattlesnake. America cannot kill a rattlesnake.
Now, this is one he actually did say before.
Okay. And so a rattlesnake, you know it's there because you hear its tail rattle, right? Well, what America seems to do on issues is instead of chopping the head off and going straight to the root of the problem to better further and advance this country, whereas Democrats like to be called progressive, we go ahead and we place laws, or in this case, chopping the tail off of the snake. So the fangs and the venom are still there, and it's still lethal, but you just told yourself, you're telling yourself now you don't know when it's going to strike. Well, it still bit me. Let's cut off more of the tail. Let's cut off more of the tail. And we, all these laws. So to me, if we have an issue with people getting guns, it seems that people under 18 are walking in. Correct. I haven't done a lookup, but from what I've seen, it looks like high schoolers have walked into schools with their parents' firearms. So they are already under 18, which is under the legal limit to obtain it. So they just are able to put their hands on it. So regardless of raising it, if the parent who is over 20 still buys a gun, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, and if someone wants to break the law, they're going to get it regardless.
Exactly.
But, okay, I was just curious on that. Now, do you have any other things to point out, any other loopholes before Brock goes on his thing? Because you said loopholes. I've heard one, really,
Yeah.
so
Well-
I want to hear what the S is.
I guess I said that in a way that I didn't need to say it. I guess
So
I am
you
willing
meant to
to
say
acknowledge- I am willing to-
loophole?
I am willing to acknowledge that there are loopholes based on discussions. So if you bring up something to me, I am willing to acknowledge that there is a potential loophole in this. I do think that there should be a little bit more done with I mean, a background check is one thing.
Right.
I
But what?
I
wanna
don't
hear
agree
this
with
one.
the whole sitting with someone and, going through, having someone ask questions, because anybody can feel like being total D-bag and say, I don't want this person having a gun. He gives me a bad feeling. And that person's family would probably go, oh, he's fine.
Have you watched any of these? Yeah, I was gonna say, have you watched any of these like rallies that they've been having where they talk about the mental health thing and they're like, we need to essentially say no to this stuff. They're like, if you have mental health issues, you can't have a gun, blah 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 blah. So they're definitely pushing it in that direction.
Which I'm okay with. But I feel like there should be, what?
Nothing. I let you go on. You said you're okay with, so that's why I was
I'm okay with them not doing the whole mental check.
oh, okay.
If anything,
That's not what it sounded like. That's
oh,
what's
no,
like,
no.
that's like,
If anything, I can see there being more, because one person's opinion can ruin one's career.
okay.
And I'm speaking for someone on this one. In my opinion, it should be more based on the family. So if anything, if you want to buy a gun, maybe what you should do, or maybe it was something I could see being put in practice. So if you're a politician, go ahead and listen to this, is there's a link and the family has to type in information. So each family goes to the link, each member of the family goes to the link. And if they're over 18, they can do it. Or maybe up to 16, because then the kids are at a point where they can acknowledge maybe abusive parent and maybe say, hey, this parent shouldn't. So you can have some benefits with that. The kids can speak up about abuse. But they go in, they log into something, and all they really do is just answer questions on the behavior of this person and whether or not they think the person should get a gun. Which I don't see that being a case, because you're getting more than one person's opinion, and you're getting people's opinion that see you day in and day out and know you, right?
So
Now, there are plenty of examples to where these shooters have shot up places, and the family's like, I can never see my son doing that.
yeah, no one
but-
ever sees their kid or family
No.
member doing that.
But I mean, I can definitely see that. But one person's opinion, I'm against.
Okay, so going back to the licensing thing, because I know that was kind of asked. California does require a license for all gun sales. Here's what's required to get a license in California. This is a per gun thing. Okay,
I have to buy a license per gun.
it says they must get first. They have to get a firearm safety certificate. They have to get that first. Then they have to pass a written exam on gun laws and responsible gun ownership. Before purchasing a firearm, individuals must perform a safe handling demonstration in the presence of an instructor certified by California Department of Justice.
No issues yet.
So that's
Same here.
That's to get a license to purchase a gun in California.
See, now, if you just told me I'd have to pay to get a license,
But you're still going to have to
I'm-
pay for all that. But yeah.
I know, well, I'm against paying for just a license. But if I'm paying to be educated on my laws,
Yeah.
if I'm paying to be educated on the use of the firearm, I have no issues with that. I actually agree. I think that if you're going to buy a gun, you should know what you're getting into.
So there's 13 states currently that require a license. States like New York, you just pay for the license and that's it. Other states, some states only require for all guns, like California and Illinois, all guns. Most CR states, it's handguns only require a license. But just letting you know, that's what the license requirements are. Now,
So, Brewer, you're done?
Brock.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start by reiterating that my thoughts and opinions are entirely my own. They do not represent the views, opinions, of the United States Navy, the Department of Navy, Department of Justice, or not Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, because I have worked for the Department of Homeland Security previously, or Department of Defense. Once again, completely my own. I will ask that you guys wait until the end of my first tirade before you start shooting at me. Additionally,
good.
I understand that this is not exactly entirely feasible as I'm going to present it. There's a lot going to go on here, and it will never fly in the current political culture and whatnot. But here's where I stand on Second Amendment, gun rights, gun ownership, all that stuff lumped together.
okay.
My opinion is that everyone of at least, once again, still kind of working on details in my head as I'm talking about this, but at age 16, you are trained on a gun, you are allowed to carry a gun, and you're even expected to carry a gun. Granted, there's a little bit of a, once again, I'll get into there because you're bound to ask about it. But everyone's expected to, at some point, to at least be willing to carry. Obviously, if you do or don't, that's going to be completely up to you. But it's going to be, everyone's going to expect it to be able to handle a gun. Everyone's going to be able to know how to use a gun. Everyone is going to be trained up to specs on gun handling performance, how you shoot, your accuracy, getting it out of the holster, putting it in the holster, loading, unloading, all that. That is a must to military standard. But shoot, now I lost my track. But yeah, everyone. And once again, the big core thing here is here's where I come from. For starters, please understand that I have sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is going to be fundamental to understanding some of where I'm coming from. It's an old ad. We're talking 1800s ad for guns, and it was God made man, Colonel Colt made them equals. I also understand, and these are my thought experiments that I've run through, is that in an environment where the possibility that everyone around you is armed, able, and willing to pull a weapon on you if you act out of line, you reduce, sure, it'll still happen, but you'll have an overall reduction in crime simply because you don't know if the person behind you is, willing and able to kill you if you step out of line.
Mm-hmm.
But so once again, I really think the answer to gun control is to make guns readily available. I think everybody should be required to have a gun. I think they should be required to train on that gun with routineness. Once again, if they, after that first gun, it could be something very basic, maybe only fire, a bolt action pistol for intents and purposes, if that's all they want. I still expect them to be able to have that in their home. relatively ready access. Obviously, when you've got kids or something like that, you have to have certain requirements to keep the gun safe from, someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Am I okay with the people who are potentially medically or mentally unstable? No, I do not want people like that having weaponry. That being said, to have that ban passed, they definitely have to have medical documentation and examinations, testing, whatever, to prove that they are in fact mentally unstable, or well-documented cases of being out of control. So yeah, go ahead and open up on me, because I've got more up here, and it's just like I can't pull it out right now. And if you ask me the question, I think I'll get it.
Okay. No, I just have one comment because you were saying about more guns and all that. Now, and this isn't necessarily a thing. This is an interesting statistic because this reminded me of the statistic. Per 100 people in the U.S., how many guns are there?
Oh, shoot. I should know this. It's not quite 1-to-1, but it's pretty up there.
I think it's over 1-to-1.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it is over 1-to-1. It's
1.4?
not, but it's a handful of people with multiple weapons.
Well, yeah, it is, but it's still.
Let's go ahead and get that back.
But it makes the statistic still crazy. So,
let's go 3-to-1.
3-to-1. Oh, okay. So 300 guns per 100 people.
Sure,
I'd say it's 1.4. So for every 100 people, there's 140 guns.
Okay, Johnson, do you have a guess?
Just to be one up of Josh, 1.5.
Oh,
Huh.
Josh is closest.
Yeah.
It's 120.5 guns per 100 people. This was 2017. They don't have the newest stat, so it just made me think of that stat. It was just interesting because I'm like,
I mean, here's another stat: the gun-owning population of America outnumbers the entire Chinese armed forces.
yeah,
Come at us, China!
No.
Not the message to be sent here. Anyway,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Josh, you're on your own.
I'm not trying to die.
but
Go ahead.
did you have any holes to poke there? Because you had your fun with Josh, but
Because I kind of knew where Josh was going to come from, so I was able to prepare ahead of time.
okay.
So I don't have too much with that because I honestly, that's what I agree with. There's
It's-
going to be a lot of politicians who push back. I know, especially after
I
these
under-
recent shootings, who are going to be like, "So you want more guns out there?" Let's be honest.
the
There's-
absolute answer is not only do I want more guns, I want more people who are trained, willing, and ready to
Yeah.
use guns.
So, but you're going to have a lot of people who are not going to be wanting to do that. But
I mean, I get that.
understand
I
where
understand-
you're coming from, but
I understand that politically that this is a complete and total pipe dream that will not be realized unless there is a radical shift in America.
yep. And
that at this point does not seem likely to ever happen.
and if they're drinking from BPA bottles, that'll never happen.
I agree with you. I've also believed that it'd be a challenge to get America up and the gun owners up to it. But I would agree in having people who want to get a firearm to at least be trained to use it. So, because I walked in, I mean, I've shot long rifles, but I didn't know a whole lot about the handling, and I still don't know a whole lot. There's plenty to learn. I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I've watched, and as much as people go, "Oh, YouTube's not reliable," you'd be surprised at how much reliable information's on YouTube. But
Also a lot of bull crap, but
that's true. But you can always learn more from something that you're doing. And the one thing that I don't see us doing, and this is kind of going off topic a little, but this is shooting back towards, is
Okay.
in order to drive, you have to have a license. You have to go through a class.
Right.
I definitely.
There's
you're gonna
there's
buy-
a difference though between driving and owning a gun, and this is
Is
where
there?
this is where I go
Mhm.
back to my normal thing here. One is constitutionally protected, one isn't.
True,
That's the difference.
but.
But okay.
In the Constitution, if you want to be nitpicky with the Second Amendment, it does say, and this is going towards gun owners on this one, it does say well regulated. Now, there are definitely people who will pull a few words out and say this is the
Yep.
whole meaning, and I will say well regulated in the sense of to bear arms, I think we should be knowledgeable on what we're bearing. So now you say, besides the constitutional aspect of it, they're technically hand in hand. You need to learn the laws and you need to know how to operate one. And I believe it should be the same on the second. Because in both aspects, a car can kill a bunch of people and a gun can kill a bunch of people.
But a car's a lot more fun to do it with.
Wow.
I would just.
So there's a statement.
So I
Especially
agree
with the
that.
Prius.
But at the same time, in Brock's sense, and a statistic that you gave earlier, more criminals are in jail who have obtained a black market gun.
Yeah.
Something that has not been sold legally. A criminal, okay, and this is something that bugs me, and I found an article, and I agree. If I have a right to defend myself, okay, and I walk into an area that says gun-free zone, means the only people who can walk into that area with a weapon is an officer.
Right?
In
Of some-
theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I walk in there and somebody comes in with a gun because they don't care what the sign says, because if I walk into a gun, open carry, concealed carry, I could get arrested and I could be thrown in jail because Wisconsin is a free zone enforcement. So they will enforce that.
Right?
But if someone comes in planning to hurt people,
They don't care.
exactly. So I think that the institutions and the free zones, gun-free zones, should be liable if I were to get shot or stabbed or punched or anything. Anything that, well, I'm just, if
Well,
I can't properly defend myself with a right that I have,
Then it's your fault because the magical sign did not protect you. It's your fault you did something wrong.
What?
I'm just
Wait. Wait.
I'm
Oh,
just throwing
confused.
I'm just throwing crazy out there.
Oh, you're just,
no.
It's the magical gun-free zone sign. It magically protects you. You must have done something wrong.
but you get where I'm coming from, though?
No, I get what you're coming from exactly, but
and for those of you,
Once again, he's just playing devil's advocate again.
just for fun.
it's so easy with him.
But no, I mean that is, I believe that if they're going to strip my ability to properly secure and protect me, if I can't do that myself, and they're going to strip that ability from me, they need to do it themselves. Like airports, okay? Airports are a perfect example. I cannot board a plane with any weapon. I don't recall if pocket knives. Is that even questioned?
Uh-oh. he
Go
has-
for it.
Okay,
for it.
for clarity's
Distinguish.
sake, I did work for the TSA. I will immediately tear your argument apart later.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. Well, now, granted, that is also a federal security level thing too that they're doing it, and the reason why they're doing that based on the 9/11 attacks. But just in a sense of, I can carry a gun up to TSA, correct?
Yes,
But I can't go past it.
you will not be allowed to take it through security.
I can take it under though. I can put it in my stove and it would go underneath the plane, unload it.
If you put it in your checked baggage,
Yep.
properly, not packaged, but
Properly secured. and
yeah, that properly secured in its case. That wasn't a part of the TSA that I was actively a part of. I don't know the
Yeah,
specifics,
Fair enough.
but okay, so there is Regulation X out there that dictates how you can move both ammo and firearms. Two different things.
Correct.
When properly secured, yes, it is allowed to go in the baggage in the belly of the airplane.
Mhm.
Absolutely not
On.
on the airplane, with certain exceptions. Those exceptions are your U.S. Marshals, U.S. Air Marshals,
Yeah.
Correct.
who are very specifically trained, highly vetted, emphasis on highly vetted. Aside from that, the only other the only other kind of people that are allowed to have weaponry on what's beyond, or what's called the sterile side of an airport, are law enforcement officers, also the U.S. Marshals, U.S. Air Marshals.
So, but in a sense,
They're all looking for the terrorists like Josh.
Paul.
His name
Nice
is Josh,
knowing ya.
His name is Josh Brewer, Racine, Wisconsin.
Oh my land, I'm gonna die. So
Oh,
I'm
my
a registered
Lanta.
owner now, Paul. You're not helping me here.
Oh my Lanta. How are you an old white lady?
Yes.
From the South?
Oh my stars.
From Georgia.
Oh my
Louisiana.
Lanta.
But in a sense of comparisons, they don't want you carrying that on board, right? They
Absolutely not.
for the security of the people, for security of the businesses, as well as for the security of the state.
Sort of.
Well,
It's not worth nitpicking.
But as soon as you cross that line, everybody on that other side, besides the few people, have a firearm, even have pocket knives.
I'm sorry, you lost me in the.
So on the other side of TSA, very few people have firearms and pocket knives. So
pocket knives, no, actually, pocket knives only a blade up to a certain length. Even then,
3 inches.
I'm trying to remember what the reg is, but I can't think of it offhand. It's been a while.
Are allowed.
There are certain sides, and also certain blade qualities. For example, anything with a serration on it automatically is a no.
Yeah, I just pulled
But
up.
in the sterile portion of the airport,
Mhm.
everyone has gone through TSA full screening or appropriate screening.
Right.
I don't want to get into that argument. Um,
Fair enough.
they have had to go through a metal detecting device of some type.
A screening of some sort,
Yeah, they've all been screened and
potentially patted down.
once again potentially being patted down. I'm not actually at liberty to describe all parts of that and all qualifiers for that.
Fair enough.
Which is fine.
TSA is still working on developing newer and better technologies for developing things.
Especially with plastic guns becoming a thing.
Exactly. That being said, you can still see a plastic gun on an X-ray machine if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It is bloody difficult, but it can be done.
He just went British on us.
As I was saying, we got the British Brock now.
Um,
It just
But-
bloody difficult.
Well,
But in
in substitute for something that would get you the PG or R rating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
but in that instance, you are entering an area to where you are told
That
it
is-
is a gun-free zone.
And
And you-
effectively, except for the exceptions of, once again, highly vetted, part of law enforcement.
Yep.
And like, if we need to find one of these guys because they screwed up, it would not be hard.
Yeah.
But besides that, there are also people there who are armed in the protection of us too. If someone were to get through, so what I'm saying is,
Can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's fine.
besides that portion, so just the vetted portion, we're in an area we are told it's going to be safe. It's gun-free zone. We don't have anything to worry about.
The
supposed to
magical gun-free zone sign is here to help you.
well, it's a little bit more than just a
I
gun-free
know.
zone zone, but
You actually go through TSA, who actually screen and vet.
they are, and once again, they are very specifically looking for things that will harm other people.
Yep, exactly.
Right. Now, granted, you're not going to have that.
That being said,
length.
that's not necessarily going to stop anyone from battery.
Yeah.
correct.
Josh will
But-
bring out his plastic fist
Baton.
and
Plastic fist. I have a plastic fist that goes over my real fist that protects my fist.
as he makes the
No,
people bloody on the plane.
chances are
That'd
something
be
like
something
that.
that would flag. That would be something.
That would flag. Yes,
Anyways, go on.
So
it would
In that
either flag or
instance-
not be usable.
Yeah.
in that instance, though, you are in an area that is safe.
For the
Okay.
most part, as safe as possible.
That is as safe as
as
possible, but
as
once again,
technologically
how did we
can
do
make
that?
it today?
Once again, how did we do that though?
Like, and why did we get to that point? So you can't expect that out of a small owner. You can't expect that out of an owner of a small business, right? If anything, okay. And I say this because if I'm stripped of my right to defend myself and I go into an area and I end up being hurt because I can't properly defend myself,
Okay.
should the premises, okay, that I'm on that is said to be gun free, should the owner of that premises be responsible? What are your opinions?
If they, okay, let me put it this way. If they are not required by law, so say, I'm going to exclude the TSA stuff because that's a whole special case scenario.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's just an example.
So, like the school where they are mandated by law to put that up, at that point, I would say the government's responsible. However, if it's a store, let's say Johnson opens his own Chick-fil-A restaurant.
Okay.
Okay. He
Very
competes with,
possible.
he competes with the Racine Chick-fil-A, with Johnson's Chick-fil-A. And he makes that Chick-fil-A a gun-free zone. And he puts the signs all around the building. And I go there and get shot in a robbery. Because the fact that, and let's say at that point I had a concealed carry permit, but I'll respect because it said that I left
Left it in the vehicle
left
locked up.
in the vehicle locked up. And I go in, get shot, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's a lot of assumptions that I would be able to necessarily do that. You're assuming I see the thing happening. You're assuming I'm not being taken by surprise. You're assuming that I'm going to be able to make the shot. You're assuming that I was licensed, like you said, to be able to make the shots in a certain certain clustering. You don't know what my shot is.
I don't know what your shot is. I'm not assuming anything.
I know, but since you don't know that, I would say honestly no. And here's why. Because if I say no because of all those things, because of the fact that I could go in there, you don't know how my shot is, you don't know my reaction time, you don't know if I saw it, you don't know any of those things. So why should the store owner be responsible? Yes, I was being responsible and leaving my thing in the car. I was following to the best of rules possible. Now, however, on the flip side, in Josh's Utopia ever comes around where people have to get licensed and they have to pass shooting tests and they have to pass all these things.
I thought that was mine.
We agreed to some point.
In the Brock Brewer Utopia. So
it's a very loud utopia right there.
Yeah.
A lot of gunpowder.
In the Brock Brewer Utopia, if that all happened where, you had to pass the shooting test, you had to do all these other things. And at that point, it's like, okay, they can at least shoot in semi-competent because Brewer goes, oh, you must be able to hit in this clustering. At that point, yes, I would say would be liable. But at currently how it stands, I'd say no.
Gun-free zones wouldn't exist in my Utopia.
That too, I know.
Mine specifically, that would not be able to fly at all because once again, it is required and almost expected.
I get that for that. I get that.
But at the same time, too, looking at the gun-free zone perspective, where are the mass shootings taking place? Churches, malls, movie theaters, schools. Well, there was a few churches in the last 2 years.
Yeah, not all.
There's a church down in Australia, but that's outside. That's just
most churches are considered, or may not necessarily in effect be, but it is considered because why are you there? You're not there, to go brag about your gun or anything like that. You're not,
Yeah,
it's a quote unquote relatively soft target. And once again, that's the best way to describe these locations is that they are soft targets. They are supposedly places where the number of people capable of responding immediately is low and also usually stand out.
Now, in a sense, though, all these places are taking place with little to no security at all. Now, I remember going to school, and when I would come to school in the morning, there wasn't an officer sitting at the front, right? There wasn't an officer watching us come in. There wasn't an officer or anything. There's a room in the middle of our school to where the officers sat.
Okay.
That was their office. The only time I would see the officers were at an event, so there'd be somebody stationed at the door. But on a normal school day, there wasn't.
Okay.
And besides cafeteria and an athletic event, that's the only time I'd really see them.
Okay.
So their reaction time to get to the opposite side of the school if something were to happen would be too slow, in my opinion. So if somebody wanted to do something, they could still effectively do something regardless if there are armed people there. Now, in situations to where the school may announce that there are teachers armed, there are select persons armed, as a potential person who might want to shoot up a place, you don't know if that's your teacher, you don't know if that's your next class teacher. So you pulling out a gun when no students at all are allowed to pull out a gun or even have a gun on the premise, the teacher's automatically going to know this isn't good. Pop, pop, pop. So for someone to commit a crime when they know they're not going to get away with that crime, less likely to commit the crime.
I mean, that is what logic would dictate. Obviously, you'll still have those nutcases and knuckleheads that will still try it. That being said,
that would be very little compared.
Once again, when you take away the likelihood of getting away with it or, getting notoriety out of it, so in the scenario where you've got a lot of people who are competent, willing, and ready to use force, the likelihood that you actually have, someone just blowing their lid and, acting a little bit rashly goes down simply because it has become a social norm that the consequences could be dealt with immediately. And once again, that's Utopia land where everyone's, like I said, everyone's trained, willing, ready.
Okay.
So I think if you're going to tell me that I can't have a right to defend myself, you should be liable for if I get hurt. That's how I see it. And if places are going to say that, I think they should take the necessary steps to help enforce that if they don't choose to. So, for example, I think police should be stationed at the entrances of schools where metal detectors are. You should have what are metal things that a kid might bring into school that are not a weapon? Let's talk about this quick.
Things that they bring into school that are metal, not a weapon.
That would be picked up by a metal detector.
Keys, parents' metal credit cards.
I
don't
actually
know.
know what they could find. So
Yeah, that's the thing. They could find lots of bottle openers for their after-school parties. If they're on a sports team, maybe some of their gear.
What gear?
I would
I
love
don't
to
know.
tell you a piece of information
Would
here, but I'm not
cleats-
at liberty.
Yeah, don't
would-
do that.
How big, in a sense, would get how big of a? metal
That's probably
particle?
something he can't. Talk about. Don't.
I cannot specify.
Yep, that's what I said. Don't
I
push on
can
that.
say
Cleats?
that no. If you can set a metal detector to go off on everybody.
Yeah,
That's about the limit of what I can say.
Otherwise, you can change the sensitivity in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because
It is a challenge. I'm just kind of opening up a door.
You're gonna have computers because there's a lot of schools that are now embracing computers in the classroom. That's going to be caught if they bring their Switch gaming system. That might trigger something potentially, or any other thing. Especially if they give it like a metal case to protect it. You know, if they're playing Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic the Gathering or whatever, and they bring it in a metal tin, congratulations. Depending on how sensitive it is, you might trigger it. So
Once
yes,
again, information I would love to talk to you guys about, but I
but
can't.
you can't. That's fine. So it's possible.
I mean, they can definitely do more to ensure the safety. If it's a gun-free zone, if it's a big area, it's a gun-free zone. Like some places do have metal detectors and security put at the state. So big festivals and fairs, they'll have that. But that's just an opinion that I have. Is I believe that free zones should be responsible. If they don't, if they're not
Provide the means.
responsible, they should pay for
If
it.
they're going to call it a gun or a weapon-free zone, they need
Ensure
to.
that it's weapon-free.
Or obviously, at least try to do what they can, because obviously the human, if anything, is at least ingenious. They
Oh yeah.
if a human wants to do something wrong or against the law, they can and will find a way to do it. That's why prison shanks are a thing. That's why you've got people who can, like, literally, you can go to a hardware store and make a gun if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
This was 9 years ago at my high school. Granted, it was a STEM high school, so, geared towards that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a rail gun that would fit in the palm of your hand was confiscated by the school staff from a student. It wasn't, as it was it powerful enough to actually do anything? No, it wasn't. It could fire a screw at, about 50 feet. That being said, with rail guns and whatnot, technically it's all about how much juice you can push through it that determines how lethal you can be with it.
And
Yeah.
I say,
And that was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just recently, you had I love how the media portrayed it, school shooting at a Waukesha high school here in Wisconsin just last week. And
Yeah.
it wasn't a shooting, it was an officer. Because usually when you hear shooting, you think someone fires shots, a bunch of people, or there's, the person shooting and officers are shooting back. Well, what happened? Kid told a resource officer that there was somebody had a handgun, and when confronted by security, the kid wouldn't hand it over and kept his hand in the pocket. Well, he ended up pulling his hand out, the pistol in his hand, and a split second, as you're pulling something out, real or not, it's a split second. And so the officer fired some pop shots into the kid. Well, it turns out it was just an airsoft gun, or a BB gun. I'm sorry. And so it's just kind of interesting how, just a little rant on how the media portrays it. It's not,
Well-
kid brings toy gun to school. It's Waukesha High School shooting. But I mean, guns, the Second Amendment, it's all tricky because everybody has their own interest, especially politics. But in my opinion, I believe that gun owners should be more responsible, more active, be more affiliated with their guns. I think if anything, I think that if someone's going to have a concealed carry license, maybe there's a reoccurring thing that happens to where they get checked on it. I would like to know that if I was a political figure, that the law-abiding citizens in my county, in my state, were active on the privilege of the Second Amendment and honoring the fact that
It's a privilege now.
it's not okay. It's not a universal right. It's a American.
And now you're playing in dangerous waters, but
Owning a firearm is not a universal right. It is an American constitutional right. It is something in America where the Constitution has allowed us to take up arms, regardless of what the government technically wants. We have that right. So I see it as a privilege in America because there are some countries to where we can't even have guns without going to jail for 15 years, aka China. And there are some countries to where you were killed right away on the spot if you had a gun. So, so in a sense, in America, it is a privilege comparative to other places in the world. But it is an American constitutional right, just like all of our rights that people say are human rights. They're constitutional rights. But yeah, I think that people should be well educated and proactive about their firearm use if they have them. But I also agree with Brock. I think that if every household was given a shotgun at the very least, and everybody was trained how to use the shotgun, I would be surprised if the robbery rates drop. And for those of you who would argue that getting rid of guns would eliminate gun violence in general, it won't, because there are statistics out there that prove that as gun violence goes down, knife violence goes up, and blunt weapon violence goes up.
And like I said earlier, you can literally go to the hardware store. It's like about maybe not even $100 worth of materials, and you can make your own gun.
You can also make a grenade launcher too.
Yeah, well, getting the grenade is a lot harder than getting ammo, but
It's true. But, yep.
Wow. I'm just looking at the time for this. This is definitely going to be broken in 2 episodes.
I just want to add something quick.
Okay.
I know you're enjoying this.
I'm already breaking it into 2 episodes, so you might as well. Yeah.
Now,
Gee.
something I've noticed, and I don't know if it's maybe it's just something just from my observation. Okay, so kind of going back to before I was saying when it came to the media and politicians publicizing AR-15s and stuff like that, and that's more about Democratic, liberal side of it and it really is a Republican conservative side. They're more for the Second Amendment right and stuff like that, and one could say that it is just a sided, vote buying view. So the Republicans choose to embrace it to buy NRA lover votes, and Democrats say they're against it because they want to buy the non-gun owner votes. Regardless of what it might be that you think, if handguns, kind of touching back, kind of recapping here, if handguns contribute to 60+% of homicides, and they're a big user in suicides, I don't know how much.
Well, it really depends on so actually,
but
1 second here, with when you said how much of that is for the suicides, let me pull this up and I will get back to that. So just put a pin in that. I have some numbers for you on that.
Okay, cool. So if just on the homicide murder side of it, handguns are boom at the top. They just are. They're easy to conceal. They're easy to transport. You can transport them in mass quantities. And the 38, the 40, 45, and 9mm tend to be a very common caliber gun that Chicago police get every year. And quite a few of them are revolvers, like the 38 revolver. Let's see, another 38 revolver, another 38 revolver, 357, another 38 revolver, another 38 revolver, and then you start hitting the 40s. And the 45s, which are common polymer pistol setup. So these are, top 20 guns seized by Chicago police in 2014. If they're publicizing and saying they need to pull rifles, the one thing I told my parents, and I said, understanding the fact that, one of the reasons probably why the Constitution gets, nobody understands the the Second Amendment. Everybody bases it off of what they've been taught, what they've heard, and the history that they know, but nobody actually really understands the true meaning of the Second Amendment and why the founding fathers ratified it in 1791. I can see this being the case, that they knew that they need to give the people enough power to help keep the government in check. And so that is just one side of it that I see.
Well,
Slightly because we just had declared independence from a overpowering nation. So to help keep that at the time, because the military was still in
transitional flux is a
Yes,
great way to put that.
there's nothing's better than having a bunch of patriots, believing the same thing. Even though it was really a civil war.
Well,
What?
not even going to the Civil War portion of it. Let's stop and look at something real quick. What does the Constitution actually do? What the Constitution actually does is it sets up the rules and limitations of the government, not the people. It's supposed to stop the government from running loose. That's what it's actually for. The Second Amendment is there to stop the government from trying to disarm the people, make it so that the government can forcibly do whatever it is. Because let's stop and look at history. Almost every single major disarmament policy ever has been followed by mass regicide of the people.
That is true. And in some places, you got lucky, and that didn't happen. But in a lot of places, it happened.
No, almost every single
What is it?
complete disarmament of the people. We are looking at Nazi Germany. We are looking at the Soviet Union. We're looking at a couple of places in both Africa and South America. I can't think of what country specifically, but any place where mass disarmament, especially firearms, has occurred, regicide has followed.
So,
Okay, so getting back to the numbers thing.
Yes.
Here, since this seemed a good point to jump in here. Okay, the last year where there's complete data on this right now is 2017. So this is
Just take it with a grain of salt.
yeah. So we're end of 2019. So numbers could have changed, but this is the last year for which there's actual data. This was released by PewResearch.org. So kind of a reputable company. They are green check lit by tools to by NewsGuard. So they're saying they follow some standards here. Okay,
they're reputable.
they're reputable. So 2017, there were 39,773 people that died from gun-related injuries in the U.S.
You said 39?
39,773 people. Okay, and this data was collected from the CDC based on statistics and information on death certificates. So this is what they got. Do you want to guess the percent that was suicide of those 39,000?
What percent?
Yeah.
39,000.
I believe it's above 75%.
What's your guess?
I have to say it's probably, I'm going to say it's about 60%.
Johnson, you got a guess?
I make it more like 65.
I was gonna say definitely majority, but you said what? 75?
I said above 75.
He said above 75. He's saying 60, 65.
I'll just do 70.
60%
No,
Right.
wow.
Oh.
of all the gun deaths were by suicide. 37% were from murder.
Mm-hmm.
The remainder, 3%,
Was
were
unintentional.
unintentional, involved law enforcement, or had undetermined circumstances.
We had a gun going off and someone got hit.
Yeah, but they don't know if it was unintentional, if something happened. Okay, that being so, of those, the largest is the law enforcement, which is 553, not 1,000, just 553 in the entire year of 2017. Okay, now that being said, again, this is from Pew Research. In 2017, 14,542 out of the 19,510 murders in the U.S. involved a firearm. That's 75%. Of the suicides that year, 23,854 of the 47,173, so about 51% of suicides that year involved a gun.
Huh.
So, these are just some numbers.
Was
there.
that attempted or successful?
Successful?
Yeah. Okay.
because this is all data based on death
Because if
certificates.
right, and then if my understanding of the statistics suggests that if you look at the attempted, that number dropped, or percent wise, that drops significantly, because usually
Right.
when you try with a firearm, it works.
Yeah, and they unfortunately, the CDC does not, at least in this database, doesn't have attempted number. It's just,
Right.
this is horrible to say. Who was successful at killing themselves? Now that being said, okay, so 39,773 total gun deaths in 2017 is actually, so the CDC has been keeping statistics on gun deaths since 1968. I didn't know they went that far back for this. It's the highest number since 1968 where they've been keeping it. The second highest is
Interesting, because that would be Vietnam era.
yeah. So the second highest was 1993, which was 39,595. So
So they're saying that gun deaths overall have gone up.
Which
that's
would have been,
that's what they're
well,
saying.
93. That would have been shortly after Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Maybe like trying to struggle with PTSD is finally
I
getting to the
say
point that they're giving up.
I say that is a big thing as well, and that's a whole other conversation. But that is a thing about veterans and suicide and PTSD, and
And veterans are more likely to use a gun because they'll know it will work,
yeah,
and they're far more, usually far more well trained with the use of firearms as well.
yep. So some of this data, regardless if you're on the side of for or against guns, Giffords Law Center has, to be honest, they have a lot of data. Now they are going to present it. I will say this perfectly upfront. They are going to present this with a bias of anti-gun, but you can still use the data in there because it's
Right.
legitimate data. They just
If the
they
data is
just
good,
did-
it doesn't matter how they present it.
they just choose to interpret it a different way. They actually have a whole document in here about why they don't want to see federally mandated concealed carry. So it's their thing, but that's a whole other thing. But regardless, we're at that time. Anyone last comments? No, Johnson. No, Brewer. No. Okay. That being said, please leave us a like, a share, comment, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I have to keep remembering it's Apple Podcasts, not iTunes. Google doesn't have ratings yet. Stitcher does have ratings. Do that. Share this with someone either who agrees or disagrees with you on guns. Get a conversation going and be civil about it.
Yes,
Yelling
please be
at-
civil. It's only through discourse that we can improve and grow.
Yelling at people does not work. Trust me, my family knows that from experience. We yell at each other over Monopoly all the time. So, with that being said, it took you a while to get there to laugh. That being said, have a good week. Next week is another interesting topic, but we'll leave that at that. And Johnson finally reveals what he's getting himself for Christmas, as well
Nothing.
as what his parents are getting him for Christmas as well.